So one thing we should keep in mind is this polynomial functions, are the general, terminology that we've used to describe all polynomials. Within polynomial functions and within polynomial equations, within polynomials in general, there are specific terms to describe a certain type of polynomial. So for example, a mononomial is something that only has one term. So it would only have one term in it, no other terms in it. A constant would be a mononomial function. Binomial is a polynomial that has two terms, right? So it could have two of these terms, and that's it. That would be a binomial function, bi, two. A trinomial is something that has three terms, right? Tri, three terms, only three terms. Now trinomials could be quadratic functions or not quadratic functions, right? So there's two main categories of naming special types of polynomial function. One of them refers to the number of terms in the function. The other one refers to the degree of a function. Okay? So the category which refers to the number of terms in the function goes such as, mononomial, binomial, trinomial, I guess quadnomial, something that has four terms in it, right? So the ones that end with polynomial, monial, whatever it is, the last part of polynomial, the last little chunk of polynomial, those refer to how many terms there are in the polynomial, and they break up the naming technique. The rules for naming those things is based on how many terms there are in the function or in the equation. The other category is referred to, you name polynomials based on their degree, right? So quadratic function is something, a polynomial that has the maximum power of 2. So it's a polynomial with degree 2. And those follow some of the things that we've already talked about, which is quadratic functions, linear functions. So a linear function, which is a line, refers to a polynomial that has a degree of 1, which means the highest power in the function is 1, right, for the x. A quadratic function is a polynomial function that the maximum power on it is degree 2, so it's x squared, right? A cubic function, a cubic basically, is a polynomial that the highest power is x to the power of 3. What's this thing called? A quartic function is something to the power of 4. What's the other one? Quintix polynomial is something to the power of 5, and so on, right? So there's two naming techniques that we use for polynomial functions and equations. One of them is based on the number of terms in the function, which is mononomial, binomial, trinomial, and the other one is, refers to the degree of the function, which is a linear function, quadratic function, a cubic function, right? So don't get confused, because the cubic function could be a mononomial or a binomial, right? F of x is equal to x cubed. That's a cubic function, but it's only a mononomial, right? X cubed plus 1, that's, still a cubic function, but it's a binomial now because it has two terms, right? So quadratic functions are things that have degree 2, x to the power of 2, and they could be, mononomials, binomials, or trinomials, okay? They couldn't be, 4 terms in a quadratic function, because what you do with quadratic functions is, well, with all functions, is you combine all like terms, and you couldn't have anything that has 4 terms. You couldn't have a quadratic function that has 4 terms in it, because the highest power you can go to is x to the power of 2. The next term would have to be x to the power of 1, or it could be x to the power of 1, and the other one is a constant, so you can't go any lower than that, right? If you think about it, it'll make sense. So super important to get your terminology down right, which is the degree refers to the power of a function, the number of terms in the function, we break those up based on, how many terms there are. Mononomial, binomial, trinomial, quadnomial. I don't know how the terminology goes beyond that. I don't even know if quadnomial is correct, okay? And this is what polynomials are, and this is what we're going to, we have been talking about the main, most of what we've been talking about has been polynomials, and we're going to explore these types of functions a lot more. You know, linear functions are a huge part of, in my area anyway, grade 10 mathematics, where you learn how to graph linear functions, where you figure out what a distance between two things is, where you figure out what a slope of a function is, where you figure out what the midpoint of a function is. Hopefully that helped. There's a lot of information here, and just take all of this with a grain of salt, and learn the terminology, because it's going to help you understand the question that you're being asked, and it's going to help you communicate better. Using English, communicate in the language of math using English, or basically it's going to help you, translate what you're finding in the language of math to English or any other language that you want to translate it into. Okay, so it helps you, apply what you've learned in the language of math based on the different types of functions you're analyzing. In the world around us, right? It's going to help you understand the world around us and whatever models you're talking about or you're creating.